Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Highly Conflicted. This week, the Trump advisors are looking at an old playbook to cut through in battleground states. But the Trump ground game in those battleground states, which will be super important in such a close election, is still suffering with issues with less than 7 weeks until November. Plus, what's going on with the far-right extremist Laura Loomer and why she is still traveling with Trump. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and Spotify and click here to subscribe. So in Pennsylvania this week, a must-win state for both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and the state that could ultimately decide the outcome of the presidential election, residents have been bombarded with political ads for many, many months. And it's not uncommon there for negative ad to follow a negative ad from one side, buffeting to another side. And at this point in the cycle, it's not clear that any of the political messaging will cut through. People tend to start tuning out whenever a political ad comes on the TV. They kind of want to watch other things. They're looking at their phone. And it's not even as though those ads are particularly interesting in the first place to begin with. It's not like Cars for Kids. At least Cars for Kids has a good tune. But, the campaigns have no choice. They have to keep up this death spiral, because the moment one side pulls back on ads, it leaves the other side with an opening to just stream out with all of their political messaging. And that defeats effectively the whole purpose of running TV ads in the first place. And so the question is, what do you do instead? And the Trump campaign thinks it has an answer with 50 days to go. The Trump campaign has had the same conundrum as everyone else, and it's not clear what can really be done in such a close race when Harris is up a couple of points in the polls and generally within the margin of error. And what they have settled on is to go back to a strategy they first tried with a lot of vigor in the 2020 cycle, and that's their local news strategy. The aim is basically to get Trump surrogates and other big name-branded Republicans on the air on specifically local evening news. They're tapping people from Trump's orbit, like Laura Trump, like Caroline Leavitt. And they're also tapping these local elected officials from the state Republican Party and kind of members of Congress from that state. And you can see this at play on the trail, increasingly at Trump's campaign stops. Some of the prime TV positions in front of Trump when he does a press conference or a rally are actually reserved for the local news networks. When Trump stopped in California, he fielded a question from a local Spectrum reporter who was positioned in his direct line of sight, so Trump would have easy access and would remember who he was supposed to call on. As the thinking goes, the real undecided voters don't watch MSNBC or CNN or even Fox. They don't watch national newscasts on ABC or CBS or NBC. They watch local news. And in many of these local media markets, the viewer loyalty is extremely high. They're watching for a number of reasons. They want to watch the weather. They want genuinely local news. They want to know what crime is going on, what the latest drug bust was, or what their local sports team was doing. But the key is that they do watch, and the audience retention levels and the engagement levels are unusually high. And so when local news does an election segment, the Trump campaign is trying to put on as a guest a Trump or MAGA world celebrity. And they think that is the thing that will help them cut through the noise. If they're not watching the political ads, but they are watching local news, what they are getting in effect is a Trump surrogate preaching to them, hopefully with softball questions, at a time when everyone in that market is watching. Now, this strategy is not particularly revolutionary, nor is it new. It's been going on for a few months already this cycle, and the Trump campaign, as we've said, even tried it in 2020. It didn't quite work out in 2020 for a number of different reasons, including that surrogates kept getting asked why Trump was holding these massive in-person rallies during COVID, which focused a spotlight on a losing issue they didn't want to deal with. And there was a lot of follow-up and there was a lot of blowback to that, and the Trump campaign ultimately decided the local news strategy was not working for them how they wanted it to. But I think the move to double down on local at this point in the cycle underscores their predicament. They're struggling away, frankly anyway, to move that needle. Harris has been ahead in all of the battleground states in these key swing state polls. On Friday, CNN had a look at all of the polls, Harris was ahead in all of them. +4, +2, +1. Trump was tied in only 2 of the polls. And that is the situation that the Trump campaign is trying to hit against. And they're having a really hard time. The one thing, aside from local news, and we'll see whether or not this works, that they're looking at is the ground game. And I think my focus on the ground game in particular is becoming more intense because of the outsized import it could have in the 2024 election, particularly because it's so close. When political ads aren't cutting through, when the local news strategy may or may not work, the one thing that we have seen election after election is that the ground game can make a lot of difference. In super close races, as we've discussed in the previous episode, turnout matters. Remember, 12,000 voters was the margin in Georgia in 2020, and something like 43,000 votes separated 3 battleground states in the previous election. This cycle, the Trump campaign has outsourced their voter turnout operation to a number of super PACs, as I reported for The Guardian, and they've had issues. At this point in the cycle, I've been reporting that there is basically only one PAC with a strong presence in all 7 battleground states. The Trump campaign once had these really grand ambitions where they were going to have Turning Point USA, AmericaPac, Turnout for America, Turnout for Trump, all these kind of various super PACs having these big plays in these battleground states where they would have this elaborate data sharing operation where they would all use the same app on their phones to send data back to the Trump campaign to make sure they weren't doubling up on resources. And it was going to be this expansive operation, more expansive and more targeted actually than the RNC's projection coming into the 2024 election. Before the Trump campaign took over the RNC in March, the idea was for there to be roughly 100 paid RNC staffers in each state as part of what they called their neighborhood team leader and their NTL scheme, where they would encourage volunteers to help with the get out the vote efforts. The Trump campaign decided it didn't want to do that for various reasons. Number one, they were more interested in election integrity at the time. That was a directive that came straight from the top, straight from Trump, who was more concerned when he was running against Biden about supposed voter fraud. He wasn't that interested in get out the vote efforts. But as Kamala Harris became the presidential nominee, the thinking inside the Trump campaign shifted. And they realized they needed to target a very specific set of demographics and to get them to turn out in the election. In particular, they're looking at white male voters, rural areas, what they're calling low propensity voters, people who, if they did cast a ballot, would support Trump, but historically don't cast ballots. And that is the subset of the population that the Trump campaign wants to hit this cycle and get them to return a ballot. So that's the goal. In reality, they've had a lot of growing pains. AmericaPac in particular, backed by Elon Musk, who owns X and has become a major Trump supporter in recent weeks, has been outsourcing its operation to a number of canvassing and door-knocking firms. AmericaPac's an interesting example, actually, because it is the most ambitious of all of the PACs, and as far as we can tell, is the only one of the constellation of PACs that actually has a presence in each battleground state. They're like the big kahuna of all of the PACs. They're doing the most. They're the biggest. They're far outspending and outmaneuvering the other PACs who have really had trouble not only getting funding, but also basically recruiting enough people to do the get out the vote efforts. AmericaPac is different. AmericaPac, run by these two ex-DeSantis aides, Janera Peck and Phil Cox, have actually done a lot, and they have managed to recruit, albeit late in the presidential race, they have managed to recruit hundreds of people in each of these battleground states. Some states are doing better than others, and that's always the case, but they at least have their act together. Or so we thought. This week, AmericaPac fired its canvassing vendor in Arizona and Nevada, a company called the September Group. By firing the September Group, which AmericaPac says was because of non-performance, all of the people that the September Group had hired to knock on doors have also been let go. That means, for several days, and until a replacement is found, the Trump campaign's biggest and most ambitious voter turnout partner has hit 0 doors. And with every passing day, the rank and file door knockers that are taking other jobs, canvassing for other campaigns, for congressional campaigns, for gubernatorial campaigns, at a time when the talent pool of good door knockers is at an all-time low. Because, think about it. All the good guys have already been hired months ago. All of the remaining guys who have been doing this job already for maybe a few weeks, a few months, are now going to other races. They're not going to be turning out for the Trump campaign. And then so you're basically looking for people who have never done this before, the people who are willing to rent a car and drive hundreds of miles over the course of the next 2 months, maybe even thousands of miles, knocking on doors, canvassing, filling out forms, logging all of their responses in a little app on their phone and sending it back to HQ. And you're doing it, especially in Arizona and Nevada, in the blazing summer heat. That's not an easy job to fill. In essence, the Trump campaign's presence on the ground in Arizona and Nevada is at risk of becoming smaller in the final stretch of the election, not bigger, which was what the plan originally was. This is going to cause a big problem for them if they can't get this rectified. The Trump campaign itself has not invested any of its own resources into its field operation. We reported a couple of weeks ago that the Trump campaign has, quote, more than 50 people, more than 50 paid staffers from the campaign proper, for instance, in Pennsylvania. That's far shy of even the RNC's projections. They were wanting, 90 people in Pennsylvania this election. And it falls far shy, again, of the Harris campaign, which we reported had 375 paid staffers in the state of Pennsylvania alone. They're getting outmaneuvered at every level. And if the Trump campaign via AmericaPac can't get its act together in Arizona and Nevada, which are two must-win states for the Trump campaign if they lose, for instance, Pennsylvania, if they want to win the election, that's an issue. Far-right conspiracy theorist Laura Loomer was back in the news for all of the wrong reasons after the presidential debate hosted by ABC when she traveled with Trump and the Trump campaign for the 9/11 anniversary in New York, although she's one of these people who has claimed that 9/11 was an inside job. There's been a lot of speculation about why Laura Loomer traveled with Trump and why she's even around in the first place. And I'm going to answer some of those questions for you. The backstory with Laura was she was first introduced to the Trump campaign about a year and a half ago by an operative close to Steve Bannon. At the time, Laura Loomer was getting sucked into doing Oppo research work for people like Kanye West. She was really on the fringes, even by Trump world standards. And what she really wanted to do was to do formal Oppo work for the Trump campaign. But she didn't really know anyone inside Trump's orbit. And so as a favor, this Bannon operative basically set her up with Chris LaSavita, the co-campaign chief, and Jason Miller, who is one of the senior advisors on the Trump campaign this time around. The issue that Laura Loomer has is she does sometimes good Oppo work, but she has a big mouth and she can't resist throwing bombs and attacking anyone who comes at her. And so by the time she got round to getting an interview with, or effectively an interview with Susie Wiles and Trump to formally have a role on the campaign, the chances of her landing an actual job were very, very small. Susie Wiles, the co-campaign chief with Chris, effectively blocked the move, according to our reporting in the New York Times. And Laura was basically left to do independent work. She's not getting paid by the Trump campaign. She's not formally part of the campaign. But the principal function of her to do Oppo research against Trump's rivals has continued. And despite being too incendiary and too controversial, even for the Trump campaign, she has remained a constant presence in MAGA world because she is more hungry and more determined to do her job in many respects than I think the paid consultants and the people paid on the Trump campaign. And Trump loves that. Trump likes her not only because she's loyal, but because she will be an attack dog against anyone and everything whenever he needs her to be. And that's the principal relationship here. We always talk about how Trump loves loyalty more than anything else, and he doesn't always reward it. But with Laura, he has. And the way it's been described to me is the reason why Trump allows Laura to travel with him, the reason why Trump allows Laura to interface with him is because he likes her tenacity, as someone close to Trump said, and he likes the fact that she will fight for him. The traveling to the debate and the New York episode, I'm told, was more a gesture from Trump that Trump personally authorized, but a gesture to say thank you. It's almost as though the situation is, look, Laura, you're not being paid. I'm sorry about that, but we still appreciate you. We still appreciate having you on side and doing, work for the Trump cause in general. And so why don't you travel with me on my plane to the debate? You can come to a couple campaign rally stops. And she accepted. She sat in the back of the cabin and traveled, and that was her kind of in-kind reward. And that is how it is being viewed inside Mar-a-Lago. Why Laura likes Trump is less clear. Liberals like to insinuate that maybe they're having an affair, but no one near Trump really thinks that's accurate at all. Someone close to Laura described her as a workaholic who's even asexual, but who wants to gain as much name ID and notoriety as possible, perhaps so she can become a Fox News contributor or some other conservative media star, and that's all she wants. Maybe she wants to be the next Rush Limbaugh. It's not exactly clear, but it is born apparently from a place of wanting to become a star on the right, a star in MAGAville. She wants the notoriety. She wants to become a big name. She doesn't really care whether it's positive press or negative press. And when Laura Loomer was getting hammered last week for her 9/11 conspiracy views when she traveled with Trump, people around her said she was loving it. She was loving the attention. She was loving the fact that the New York Times wrote a story. Who is Laura Loomer? She didn't care that in the main the story was negative or made her look in no small way like a kook. She just liked the fact that she was getting the New York Times to write about her and that she was getting retweets and clicks and name ID in Trump world. The problem that the campaign has is that you can't pick and choose with Laura Loomer. If you take some of her work and hitch yourself to her car, you're stuck with all of her. You can't be like, I like the work she did here, but we're going to disavow the rest of her work there. That's not how Laura Loomer operates, and that's how not the rest of the world operates. If you use part of Laura Loomer's work, you're stuck with her. You're attached at the hip, and at this point, the Trump campaign can't remove itself or excise any part of the Laura Loomer brand from Trump's brand. People around Trump think that the Laura Loomer situation may well yet happen again between now and November. The way you get access to Trump in conservative circles is you have to build up a base of support. You have to have people vouch for you. She got in through the front door, through the Bannon operative who introduced her to the campaign chiefs. She had backing from people inside the campaign who saw her as an asset, more than a liability, even though she has her incendiary moments and picks fights with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so she had a lot of support. She had a lot of factions inside Trump world say, yeah, Laura's a good egg. She's fighting for us. Let's keep her around. But Laura Loomer's not done. She is very savvy, and she knows how to play the Mar-a-Lago Palace intrigue game very, very well. Most notable of all, she is close friends with Natalie Harp, who is this once obscure aide, but has become more prominent in recent months. And Natalie Harp is AKA Human Printer, the aide that travels around with Trump with a portable printer in her handbag and with spare rolls of toner, I am told. Natalie's function is to print out stories from the internet that Trump likes or tweets that Trump might like and put them before Trump. What became originally an administrative role, though, has metastasized into a sort of gatekeeping role. If you want to get a story in front of Trump, if you want to get a tweet in front of Trump, if you have a personal relationship with Natalie, that's one way to do it. And Laura's recognized that, I think, and Laura has been close to Natalie Hart for some time. And so even if the Trump campaign were to shut down Laura's formal access through the campaign to Trump, Laura can always go through Natalie. She can always text Natalie a story, and Natalie can print it out and put it in front of Trump, and Trump will still see it. Laura can tweet something out that's controversial and incendiary. Send it to Natalie. Natalie will print it out, and Trump will see it. But of course, the biggest issue the campaign has is that Laura Loomer now texts Trump directly. If you can message the principal yourself and get stuff in front of the principal, and the principal likes it, there's nothing that Susie Wiles or Chris Acevedo or anyone else in the Trump campaign can do to prevent that from happening. They don't monitor Trump's phone. They can't, right? They can't. And they can't prevent, crucially, people from traveling on his plane. The difference between the Trump campaign and other Republican campaigns is that Donald Trump owns his own plane. Trump can put whoever he wants on Trump Force One. He can kick whoever he wants off the plane at any reason. That happened to me. In 2023, Trump didn't like a story that I wrote about Trump Media, the parent company of Truth Social, being investigated by the Southern District of New York and federal prosecutors looking at money laundering allegations connected to a Russian-American investor. I was supposed to travel with Trump, kick me off, but you can do that if it's your plane. And so Susie Wiles and Chris Acevedo, even if they want to kick Laura off, they cannot. It's their principal's plane. It's their principal's decision as to who he lets on. And so long as Laura Loomer continues to have direct access to Trump, formally, informally, and through her own text messages, Laura Loomer will remain a presence in Trump world. Doesn't mean she's going to be front page news every week. She's also not trying to be a distraction to the campaign. But so long as she has that access, it's pretty safe to assume that she will continue to pop up, potentially at inopportune moments that could damage the Trump candidacy. That's it for Highly Conflicted with me, Hugo Lowell. See you next week.